The joke left my mouth at 6:18 on a Thursday evening while I was strapping a cedar crate into the back of my truck. "Come with me," I called across the hedge. "You look like you could use 300 miles where nobody knows your name." I expected Evelyn Hart to smile, shake her head, and carry the grocery bag in her arms into the yellow house next door. That was how most of our conversations ended. A joke from me. A careful smile from her. A door closing before either of us said anything that could be remembered too clearly. Instead, she stopped under the porch light. Her husband's black sedan was gone. The street was still wet from an afternoon storm, and the pavement reflected the pale green glow of the vintage motel sign tied down in my truck bed. I had spent 4 months restoring that sign for a collector outside Santa Fe. It read Desert Star in faded red letters and had a metal arrow that would blink once the wiring was connected. Evelyn looked at the sign, then at me. "When are you leaving?" she asked. "Saturday, before sunrise." "How long?" 8 days, unless the truck loses an argument with New Mexico. She laughed, but it sounded borrowed. Then she said, "Maybe I will." I laughed too, because I thought she was continuing the joke. At 5:03 Saturday morning, she knocked on my kitchen door with a small brown suitcase in one hand and a blue raincoat folded over the other arm. "My husband thinks I'm in Dallas with my sister," she said. "Can I still come?" That was the moment the joke stopped being funny. My name is Owen Mercer. I was 44 that summer, divorced for 6 years, and living in a brick bungalow in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with a detached garage I had turned into a neon repair shop. I restored old diner signs, theater marquees, barbershop clocks, and anything else built in an era when businesses wanted to be seen from a mile away. Evelyn and her husband, Grant, had moved into the house next door 11 months earlier. He sold high-end real estate and had the practiced charm of a man who decided where everyone belonged. Evelyn worked as a guidance counselor at a public middle school. She was 41, with dark blonde hair she usually tied at the nape of her neck, and a voice that made children stop pretending they were not listening. She grew herbs along the side fence, read old travel magazines on her back steps, and apologized whenever Grant interrupted her, even when he was not in the room. We had become neighbors slowly. The first real conversation happened in October when her kitchen flooded. Grant was out showing a property, and she stood in her driveway holding a wrench as if someone had handed her a musical instrument from another country. I shut off the water, helped her pull the soaked rug outside, and showed her where the pipe had split beneath the sink. While we waited, I learned she had once planned to study architecture. Her father owned a drafting business in Wichita, but illness and money had bent her life another way. "You still draw?" I asked. "Sometimes," she said. "What? Rooms I'd like to leave?" She looked embarrassed after she said it. I pretended not to notice. By winter, she occasionally came into my garage workshop when the big door was open. She liked watching me bend heated glass over metal patterns. The first time I lit a repaired sign in front of her, a blue crescent moon from a closed bowling alley, she stood in the dark, with both hands tucked into her coat pockets. "It looks like it remembers being happy," she said. I remembered that sentence. I also remembered the first time Grant came looking for her. He did not step into the shop. He stood at the edge of the driveway and called her name twice, smiling the whole time. She left before the transformer cooled. So when she stood in my kitchen before dawn with a suitcase, I did not ask whether she had permission. She was not a child. I asked a different question. "Are you in danger?" "No." "Are you running away?" She looked toward the dark window over my sink. "I don't know yet. That isn't an answer. It's the only honest one I have. I should have told her no. I should have taken the suitcase back across the lawn and waited on the sidewalk while she unlocked her own door. Instead, I poured coffee into a travel mug and said, "The passenger seat sticks. Pull the handle twice." She closed her eyes for 1 second, as if relief hurt. Then we left Tulsa before sunrise, with the restored Desert Star sign glowing faintly behind us every time we passed beneath a street lamp. For the first 40 miles, Evelyn watched Oklahoma flatten itself beyond the passenger window. She had changed after arriving at my house. Not clothes. She still wore dark jeans, a cream sweater, and white sneakers, but posture. At home, she always seemed to be listening for someone behind her. In the truck, she sat straight and silent, both hands wrapped around the paper cup I had given her. I kept expecting her phone to ring. It stayed inside her purse. "Near Sepulpa," I said. "I need to understand the lie." "I told Grant there was a school counseling conference in Dallas. I said my sister would meet me there afterward. Is there a conference?" "Yes." "Last month." "Does your sister know?" "No." I tightened my grip on the wheel. "You put me in a story without asking." "I know. And if he calls her?" She won't answer. "They haven't spoken in 2 years." "That does not make this better." "No." Her willingness to agree with me made it harder to stay angry. I wanted an argument because an argument would have made the boundaries simple. I pulled into a truck stop outside Oklahoma City and parked beside a row of semi-trailers. The restored sign creaked against its straps when the wind pushed the truck. Evelyn looked at me. "I can take a bus back," she said. "You can. I have enough money." "Good. But I don't want to." I turned toward her. "Then tell me what you do want." She opened her purse and removed a long white envelope. The return address was a bank in Amarillo, Texas. She held it on her lap without giving it to me. "My Aunt June died in February," she said. "She left me a safe deposit box. Grant knows about the box, but he thinks it contains family jewelry. The bank is closing the account Monday. I have to appear in person. What's actually in it? I don't know." June called me the week before she died. She said she had found papers that belonged to my father. She told me not to discuss them over the phone and not to bring Grant. That explained the route. Amarillo was directly west, halfway to Santa Fe. It did not explain why she needed me. You could have driven yourself. Grant put my car in the shop on Thursday. For what? He said the brakes were unsafe. Were they? I had them replaced in March. A chill moved through me, despite the warm truck cab. Did you ask the mechanic? He uses a shop owned by one of Grant's clients. They told me it would take at least a week. And you think he knew about the bank deadline? I think he opened the first letter. This is the second notice. It came to the school. Why didn't you tell the bank? Because I kept hoping there was an explanation that did not require me to admit what my marriage had become. There it was. Not drama, not romance. Shame. I understood shame better than I wanted to. 6 years earlier, my wife, Donna, left after 17 years. I had taken over my father's failing sign shop and missed school meetings, birthdays, and the moments our daughter, Sophie, needed me. By the time I learned that providing was not the same as being present, Dana had stopped asking. Sophie was 20 now, making ceramic lamps in Santa Fe, and had not called me Dad in 3 years. The sign was not my only reason for traveling. I bought a ticket to an outdoor dinner featuring Sophie's work. When I asked whether I could attend, she replied, "You can buy your own." So I did. I had not told Evelyn any of that. She looked at the envelope in her lap. "I am not asking you to rescue me," she said. That is usually what people say right before asking for rescue. "I am asking for a ride to Amarillo. After that, if you want me gone, I'll rent a car." I almost said yes. Instead, I asked, "Did you leave him a note? I left a dinner in the refrigerator and the number for the hotel where the conference was held last month." "That is not what I asked." "No," I said. "There are rules." She waited. "You sleep in your own room. You pay your own expenses. Nothing happens between us that either of us would have to hide differently than you are already hiding this trip. And at every stop, you get to choose whether you keep going." A sadness crossed her face. "Do you think I came because I expected something to happen? I think lonely people can confuse escape with love. And you?" "I think lonely men can confuse being needed with being chosen." She folded the bank letter and returned it to her purse. "Those are fair rules," she said. At breakfast, her finger followed a paper map west toward New Mexico. "I have never been farther west than Oklahoma City," she said. I thought she was exaggerating. She was not. When we returned to the truck, she stood beside the passenger door for a moment and looked toward the western sky. Then she pulled the handle twice, climbed in, and said, "Let's see what is inside the box." We reached Amarillo in the late afternoon, under a sky the color of old aluminum. Wind swept grit across the bank parking lot as Evelyn held the white envelope. "You don't have to come inside," she said. "I know, you can wait here. I can." She studied me as if trying to decide whether I was offended. Then she said, "Would you come anyway?" At the downtown bank, an employee checked Evelyn's documents and left us alone with a gray metal box. She stared at it, breathing shallowly. "You can still leave it shut," I said. "No, I've done enough of that." She inserted the key the bank had mailed her. The lock resisted, then turned with a hard click. Inside were no diamonds, no cash, no secret family heirlooms. There were 3 folders, a spiral notebook, a flash drive, and a small brass compass with a cracked glass face. Evelyn lifted the compass first. "My father carried this when he surveyed land," she said. Under it lay an envelope with her name written in shaky blue ink. She opened the letter and read silently. Her mouth tightened after the first paragraph. By the second, she had sat down. I looked away, giving her privacy in a room built to contain secrets. After several minutes, she slid the letter across the table. It was from Aunt June. "Evie, your father kept copies because he did not trust Grant. I thought he was being unkind. I was wrong. The house on Jasper Street was meant for you alone. Your father paid the taxes until he died, but Grant convinced you to place it into the company. The deed transfer attached here does not carry your father's signature, neither does the loan document. I found the originals in his old drafting cabinet. There are statements showing money moved from the property account into Hart Residential Group. There are emails Grant sent from your father's computer after the funeral. I am sorry I waited. I wanted peace in the family, and called silence peace. Do not make my mistake." June Evelyn read the last line aloud. Then she opened the folders. Her father had left her a small commercial building in Wichita, the one that had housed his drafting office and 2 rented storefronts. 4 years earlier, Evelyn had signed papers Grant described as routine tax documents. The records in the box suggested he had transferred the building into his real estate company, refinanced it, and used the equity to cover losses from a failed luxury development. One signature looked like Evelyn's. Another looked close enough to fool someone who did not know her. She pressed both hands flat on the table. "I remember the night he brought the papers," she said. "My father had been dead 9 days. Grant put sticky notes where I should sign. I could barely read my own name." "Did you sign the deed?" "I don't know. That matters." "I know it matters." Her voice sharpened, and I stepped back. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "Don't apologize for having an edge." She looked at the flash drive. The notebook contained dates, account numbers, and brief observations in Aunt June's handwriting. The flash drive held scanned emails and photographs of documents. One email from Grant to his accountant said, "Evelyn will sign whatever I put in front of her. She always does when she is frightened." She read it twice, then walked to the window. "I thought I was weak because I could not make him happy," she said. I said nothing. She turned. "Do you know how humiliating it is to discover the person who kept telling you that you were confused was depending on you to stay confused?" "Yes." She waited for me to explain. I did not. The bank employee helped her copy the files to a secure drive and arranged to send the originals to a law office of her choosing. Evelyn called her sister, Rachel, from the private room. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Where are you?" she asked before Evelyn could speak. "In Amarillo." A pause. "With him?" Evelyn looked at me. "With my neighbor." Rachel exhaled so loudly I heard it across the room. "Grant called me at noon," she said. "He knew there was no conference. He asked whether you were having an affair." "I'm not." "Then why are you in Amarillo with a man he already hates?" Evelyn closed her eyes. "Because Grant stole my father's building." The silence on the line changed. Rachel stopped sounding irritated. She started sounding afraid. "What did you find?" "Enough. Come to Dallas. I can't. You can. You should. I need to go to Santa Fe first." That surprised me as much as it surprised Rachel. "Why?" her sister asked. Evelyn looked down at the cracked compass. "Because I have spent 16 years going only where other people said was sensible." After the call, we left the bank with the metal box empty and the document sealed in a courier envelope. At the truck, she handed me the brass compass. The needle trembled, turned, and settled north. "My father used to say a compass cannot tell you where to go," she said. "It only tells you whether you are lying about the direction." I returned it to her. "Which direction are you lying about?" She looked west. "I'm still working that out." We checked into separate rooms at an old roadside motel with turquoise doors. At 9 that night, someone knocked on mine. I opened it, expecting Evelyn. No one was there. On the concrete walkway lay a white envelope. Inside was a photograph of my truck parked at the bank. On the back, in black ink, someone had written, "Ask her what she took from me." I carried the photograph to Evelyn's room. She opened the door with the security chain still fastened. When she saw my face, she closed it, released the chain, and let me in. I handed her the envelope. The color drained from her face. "Did Grant take this?" I asked. "No. He never writes in all capitals." That is a strange thing to know. Marriage teaches you the shape of someone's anger. She turned the photograph over again. The blurred picture had been taken from across the bank lot. A white pickup appeared in the building's reflection. "Who else knew about the box?" I asked. "My aunt." The bank. "Grant? Your sister?" "Only after today." What did the note mean? What she took from me? Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know." Her answer was too quick. I waited. She rubbed one thumb across the cracked face of the compass. "Grant had a partner named Malcolm Voss. They developed a gated community north of town. The project failed last year. Grant told everyone Malcolm stole investor money and disappeared." "And you think Malcolm sent this?" "I think Grant has said his name every day for a year, like saying it enough will make the story true." I used the room phone to call the front desk and asked whether anyone had been seen near my door. The clerk said a man in a baseball cap had walked through the parking lot 15 minutes earlier. No car description. No camera covering the rear building. "We should call the police," I said. "With what?" A photograph and a question? with evidence that someone followed us. She looked at the envelope. If Grant sent someone, a police report tells him I'm frightened. You're frightened. I don't want him making decisions for me because of that anymore. You don't prove freedom by ignoring danger. The words came out harsher than I intended. She stood. And you do not get to become another man who decides where I go because he says it is safer. I stared at her. She stared back. You are right, I said. She had expected resistance. I saw it in the way her shoulders stayed raised. I continued. You decide. But you decide with the information that somebody followed us, photographed my truck, and knows what happened at the bank. Her shoulders lowered slightly. Will you leave if I call the police? She asked. No. Will you be angry? Yes. That made her laugh once, despite herself. We called. An officer arrived 40 minutes later, took the envelope, photographed the photograph, and gave us an incident number. He could not do much, but he agreed to ask the night patrol to pass through the lot. After he left, Evelyn handed me the rolled tube from her desk. I brought this because I thought I might need to remember who I was before Grant. Inside were confident hand-drawn plans, a courtyard house, a children's library, and a roadside motel converted into apartments for women rebuilding their lives. You drew these? At night, mostly when Grant traveled. These are good. You don't have to say that. I repair signs for people who think putting Edison bulbs around bad lettering creates history. I am capable of criticism. She spread the motel plan across the bed. I imagined buying a place like this, she said. Not as a shelter exactly, more like a bridge. 6-month leases, child care, a shared kitchen, legal clinics twice a month. Why didn't you? Grant said nobody would finance a fantasy built by a woman who had never finished architecture school. And you believed him? I believed he knew how banks worked. I pointed toward the courier receipt on the desk. Apparently he does. She looked at me, then down at the drawing. The attraction between us became impossible to deny, not because she was vulnerable, but because she was angry, intelligent, and finally speaking without being edited. I wanted to touch her. I stepped away instead. You should sleep, I said. So should you. At the door, she said my name. I turned. Why are you really going to Santa Fe? There are questions that sound simple only because the person asking cannot see where you buried the answer. My daughter lives there. You never told me you had a daughter. I don't tell most people. Why? Because then they ask whether we're close. Are you? No. She waited. I could have escaped with a joke. I had used jokes for years as doors that looked like windows. I failed her, I said. Not once, repeatedly. In ordinary ways, that added up. Evelyn folded her arms, not defensively, but to hold still. Does she know you're coming? She knows I bought a ticket to an event where her work will be shown. That is not what I asked. No, she did not invite me. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then maybe we are both traveling somewhere we have no right to expect a welcome. The sentence followed me back to my room. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. I heard you're bringing someone. I sat up in bed. Before I could answer, a second message appeared. Do not use me to impress your girlfriend. The next morning, I showed Evelyn the messages. She read them over coffee in the motel lobby. Her face changed when she reached the second one. Grant contacted your daughter, she said. Or somebody did. Who else knows my name? Anyone who looked at my public business page. You commented on a photograph of the sign last month. I wrote, beautiful work. That may have been enough. She set my phone on the table as if it were evidence. I am sorry. Do not apologize for what he chose to do. I brought this to your family. My family already had cracks. He found one and pushed a note through it. I answered Sophie with the truth. Evelyn is my neighbor. She needed a ride west for personal reasons. She is not my girlfriend. I am not bringing her to your event unless you say she is welcome. I will attend alone, sit in the back, and leave if you ask me to. No reply came. We left Amarillo under a low ceiling of clouds. The land opened wider with every mile. Rusted windmills turned above dry fields. Abandoned gas stations stood beside the highway with their windows boarded and their old signs stripped down to steel bones. Evelyn placed the brass compass in the cup holder. Just past the New Mexico line, rain struck the windshield in sudden heavy sheets. Visibility disappeared. I slowed and followed the red lights of a cattle truck until an exit appeared. We pulled beneath the awning of a closed service station. Rain hammered the metal roof while we sat without speaking. Then Evelyn said, "Grant told me you left your wife for another woman." I looked at her. "When?" "The first week we moved in. He said he had asked around. There was no other woman. I know that now." "No, you don't. I watched you live next door for 11 months. There was barely another person." I laughed, despite myself. She continued. "Why did the marriage end?" The answer had become polished over time. "We grew apart. I worked too much. We wanted different lives." Those phrases were smooth stones I could hold without cutting myself. I did not use them. "My daughter had her first panic attack in a grocery store," I said. Dana called me. I was installing a sign at a casino and told her to take Sophie home. The next month it happened again at school. Dana asked me to attend a meeting with the counselor. I sent flowers afterward because I forgot. Evelyn looked out at the rain. I told myself I was under pressure. The shop owed money. My father had died. Employees depended on me. All true. None of it made Sophie less alone. What happened? One night she called from a party. She was 15, crying, and asked me to pick her up. I had been drinking with a client. Not enough to be drunk, but enough that I should not drive. I told her to call her mother. You made the responsible choice. I made the responsible choice after making 100 irresponsible ones. Dana drove 40 minutes. Sophie waited outside in the cold. The next morning, Dana said she was done teaching me how to be a father. The rain softened. "Did you fight for the marriage?" Evelyn asked. "I fought for the house, the shop, the schedule, things I could measure." "And Sophie?" "She moved to New Mexico with Dana after high school. I sent money. I sent birthday gifts. I called until she stopped answering. Have you apologized?" "Many times." "For what?" I looked at her. She held my gaze. That was the problem with counselors. They knew where general language hid specific guilt. "I apologized for not being there. That is a category. I apologized for missing the concert." "That is an event. What do you want me to say?" "I want you to know whether you are asking her to forgive the pain or to remove your shame." I opened the truck door and stepped into the damp air. Evelyn joined me beneath the awning. "I should not have said it that way," she said. "You were right. Right can still be cruel." "No. It can be accurate before a man is ready." The Desert Star arrow aimed west above the truck bed. "I thought this trip was about showing Sophie I had changed," I said. "Maybe that is the same as asking her to make me feel changed." Evelyn stood beside me, close enough that I could feel heat from her shoulder. "What would happen if you attended the event and expected nothing? I might get nothing." "Yes." I turned toward her. The distance between us became a decision. She looked at my mouth, and I stopped myself from touching her. "Our rules," I said. "I remember. Do you resent them?" "Yes, so do I." A smile moved across her face. It was not happy exactly. It was honest. We returned to the truck. By late afternoon, The clouds broke. Sunlight struck the wet red earth and turned every roadside puddle into a piece of sky. Evelyn took the rolled drawings from her suitcase and held the motel plan against the dashboard. "When this is over," she said, "I am going to finish one thing I started." Architecture school? Maybe. Or the bridge housing project. That is not a small thing. I am tired of making my life small enough that no one feels threatened by it. The compass needle trembled with the movement of the truck. Ahead, the mountains appeared, blue and distant. For the first time since we left Tulsa, Evelyn turned on her phone. There were 32 missed calls from Grant, one voicemail from her attorney's office, and a message from an unknown number, Malcolm Voss. I can prove the signatures were forged. Do not trust your husband, and do not trust the man driving you until he tells you who paid for the Desert Star sign. I pulled onto the shoulder. Evelyn read Malcolm's message again. "Who paid for the sign?" she asked. "A company called Mesa Lodging Partners. Do you know the owner?" "No. The job came through a broker in Albuquerque. Half up front, half on delivery. Show me." I opened the invoice folder stored in the glove compartment. The contact name was Lawrence Vale. The delivery address was an old motor court south of Santa Fe that Mesa Lodging Partners planned to renovate. Evelyn searched the company on her phone. The signal faded in and out between hills, but eventually a state business filing appeared. Registered agent, Malcolm Voss. The coincidence felt too exact because it was not one. Grant had not followed us only because Evelyn left. He had been watching the sign job. He knew my route before I made the joke. My stomach tightened. "I posted the delivery date online," I said. "A progress update for the customer. So Grant knew you were going west, and when you disappeared, he knew where to look." Evelyn called Malcolm from my phone. He answered immediately. "Put me on speaker," she said. His voice was older than I expected and worn down by caution. He told us he had not stolen from Hart Residential Group. Grant had diverted investor funds into personal accounts, then blamed the missing money on him. Malcolm fled Oklahoma after receiving threats from 2 investors who believed Grant's version. The Desert Star sign had belonged to Malcolm's grandfather. Restoring the motel was his attempt to rebuild something that existed before the failed partnership. "Why did you send the photograph?" Evelyn asked. "I did not." "What about the note?" "I sent the text. Nothing else. Someone else had photographed us at the bank. Malcolm believed it was a private investigator Grant used during lawsuits and divorces. He also believed the documents in Aunt June's box could connect Grant to forged transfers in the failed development." "Why should I trust you?" Evelyn asked. "You should not," Malcolm said. "You should trust documents, timestamps, and people whose stories cost them something." He offered to meet at the motel property with his attorney present. Evelyn agreed. I did not like it, but I did not object. We reached Santa Fe after dark. Our hotel had only one reservation. The clerk said, "1 king room, Mr. Mercer. I booked 2 queens. It was changed online yesterday." Evelyn and I looked at each other. Grant again. A childish manipulation, but an effective one if photographed. I asked the clerk to cancel the reservation. We found 2 rooms at a smaller inn across town and paid in cash. At 9, I left Evelyn in the lobby and drove alone to the art dinner. The event filled a courtyard with pottery and white lights. Sophie's rough clay lamps released narrow lines of gold. She had inherited my father's hands and none of my patience for pretending. I saw her before she saw me. Her hair was shorter than in Dana's last photograph. I stayed near the entrance until she noticed me. Then she looked up. Her face closed. I did not walk toward her. I took a seat in the last row for the presentation and listened as she spoke about light escaping through damaged surfaces. The words hit close enough that I almost smiled, but I had learned not to claim meaning that belonged to her. Afterward, Sophie approached me. "Where is she?" she asked. "At another hotel, so there is a she. There is a woman who needed a ride. The situation is complicated, and none of it is yours to carry." Grant Hart emailed me screenshots. "What screenshots?" "Messages between you and Evelyn." "There are no messages. He sent photographs. Her in your workshop, you at a restaurant, her getting into your truck. Those are not messages. They tell a story. They tell the story he wants." Sophie crossed her arms. "You always have an explanation." That sentence could have turned me defensive. For years it did. This time I said, "Yes." And explanations are not the same as repair. She looked surprised. I continued. "I came because I wanted to see your work. I also wanted you to see that I am better than I was." That second reason was selfish. She said nothing. "I missed the counselor meeting. I forgot your concert. I made you wait at that party because I had chosen a client again. I sent money when you needed attention, and gifts when you needed me to remember details. I kept apologizing for being absent because it sounded less ugly than saying I repeatedly chose what made me feel important over what made you feel safe." Her eyes shone, but her voice stayed hard. "You do not get points for finally naming it." "I know. What do you want from me?" "Nothing tonight." "Then why say all that?" "Because it is true even if you never forgive me." We stood beneath one of her lamps. Light fell through the cuts in the clay and striped the ground between us. After a while, she said, "Your ticket was for table 3. I sat in the back. I noticed. It was not forgiveness. It was not even warmth. It was the first thing she had offered me that was not a closed door. I thanked her for letting me attend and turned to leave. At the courtyard gate, she called. "Owen," I stopped. "Your sign delivery is tomorrow, right?" "Yes, I know the motel. Malcolm bought 3 of my lamps for the lobby." My heart sank. She looked past me toward the street. "And Grant Hart is here. He came to the studio this afternoon asking where you were staying." When I reached the inn, Grant was sitting in the lobby beside Evelyn. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie. His jacket was open, his hands relaxed on his knees, and his expression had the practiced patience of a man waiting for everyone else to become reasonable. Evelyn sat in an armchair across from him. The brass compass rested in her palm. I stopped near the front desk. Grant looked at me and smiled. There he is, the tour guide. Evelyn did not turn. "Owen, please stay where you are." I stayed. Grant leaned toward her. "You have made your point. Come home, and we can handle this privately. You forged my father's signature. Your aunt filled your head with suspicions because she never liked me. I saw the emails. Documents can be misunderstood. You wrote that I would sign anything when I was frightened." His smile disappeared for half a second. Then it returned. "You were grieving. I protected you from decisions you could not handle. You took my building. I put an unproductive asset to work for our future. Our future did not require my consent. You gave consent. Then you will not mind a handwriting expert looking at the deed." Grant's eyes hardened. He turned to me. "Do you understand what she is doing? She has anxiety. She becomes fixated. She builds stories, and people around her encourage them because they enjoy feeling heroic. The old version of me might have answered for her." I looked at Evelyn instead. She stood. "I am not asking Owen to believe me," she said. "I am giving the evidence to an attorney. Grant rose too. You do that, and every investor in the development will come after us. We will lose the house, your pension, everything. You mean you will lose everything. We are married. Not for much longer. Grant stepped closer to Evelyn. I moved once, then stopped when she lifted a hand. She did not need me between them. She needed witnesses. I know about the private investigator, she said. The police have the photograph and envelope. I have no idea what you mean. Good. Then you will be comfortable saying that under oath. He stared at her. For the first time, I saw what she had lived beside. Not a monster roaring, but a man calculating which version of reality would cost him the least. Grant lowered his voice. You are throwing away 16 years because a lonely repairman flirted with you. Evelyn looked at me briefly. Then she faced her husband. No. I am ending 16 years because you believed my fear belonged to you. She picked up her raincoat and walked toward the hallway. Grant called after her. If you leave now, do not come back. She stopped. My chest tightened. She turned, not toward him but toward the front desk. Could you please call a cab for the airport tomorrow morning? The clerk nodded. Evelyn continued down the hall. Grant stood in the lobby for several seconds. Then he looked at me. You think she chose you? No, I said. I think she finally chose herself. That is why you cannot bargain with her. He left without another word. The next morning, Evelyn did not go to the airport. She met Malcolm, his attorney, and a forensic accountant at the Desert Star Motor Court. I delivered the sign while they reviewed copies of Aunt June's records beneath the empty steel frame where the old sign had hung. The motel was a ruin in progress, with peeling doors, exposed wiring, and weeds in the courtyard. Malcolm's attorney believed the forged transfer could be challenged. The accountant believed Grant had moved money through at least 4 shell companies. None of it would be quick. None of it was guaranteed. But it was real. At noon, Malcolm paid the remaining balance for the sign. He also asked Evelyn to show him her motel housing plan. She hesitated. Then she unrolled it across the hood of my truck. For the next hour, they talked about unit sizes, communal kitchens, security, rent, and whether 6 rooms could become 12 small apartments. Malcolm did not praise her vision. He asked practical questions. She answered most of them and wrote down the ones she could not. Watching her, I understood that the trip had never been about escaping with me. I had simply been transportation at the moment she decided to move. That realization hurt my pride and relieved my heart. Before sunset, Sophie arrived carrying 3 ceramic lamps for the future lobby. She acknowledged Evelyn with a cautious nod. This is the neighbor? She asked me. This is Evelyn Hart. Evelyn held out her hand. I am sorry my marriage reached into your life. Sophie shook it. My father's choices reached into my life long before your marriage did. The words were sharp, but Evelyn did not defend me. I believe you, she said. Sophie looked at her more carefully after that. We installed the sign at dusk. When I connected the final wire, the red letters flickered, failed, then burned steadily. The arrow flashed toward the motel office. Desert Star glowed against the violet sky, bright enough to paint the cracked pavement red. Malcolm applauded once. Evelyn laughed. Sophie stood beside me with her hands in her jacket pockets. You still over-tighten the housing screws, she said. I do. Grandpa used to yell at you for that. He was right. She looked at the sign. Dana says you have been going to therapy. For 9 months. You never told me. I did not want to make progress, another thing you had to reward. She nodded. Then she handed me a small lamp wrapped in newspaper. One side had a narrow opening shaped like an arrow. It cracked in the kiln, she said. I was going to throw it away. I understood the gift. I did not make it larger by naming it. "Thank you," I said. Evelyn flew to Dallas the next morning to stay with Rachel. I drove back alone. We did not kiss. We did not promise to wait. At the airport curb, she placed the brass compass in my hand. "Keep this until I know where I'm living," she said. "What if you decide not to come back to Tulsa?" "Then mail it." I watched her enter the terminal without looking over her shoulder. Grant was charged with financial fraud 4 months later. The divorce took almost a year. Evelyn recovered the Wichita building, sold it, invested in the Desert Star renovation, and enrolled in evening design courses. 18 months after our trip, the motel reopened as transitional apartments. She moved into a Tulsa rental with no one else's name on the lease. We spoke carefully during those months. Coffee in public, occasional calls, no secret romance beneath unfinished paperwork. Sophie and I began with one Sunday call each month. Sometimes she answered. Sometimes she did not. I stopped treating silence as punishment and began treating consistency as something I owed whether it was noticed or not. On the 2nd anniversary of the Desert Star delivery, Evelyn asked me to drive west again. This time she did not lie to anyone. She arrived at my kitchen door at 5:03 in the morning with the same brown suitcase, the blue raincoat, and 2 cups of coffee. "Are you teasing me about traveling with you?" she asked. "No, that is disappointing. I am asking properly." She stepped closer. "Then ask." I looked at the woman who had once made herself smaller to protect a marriage, and who now had building plans waiting in the truck, attorneys who returned her calls, and a home that belonged only to her. "Come with me," I said, "not because you need a ride, not because I can save you. Come because I want to know who we are when neither of us is escaping." She smiled. "Yes." Our first kiss happened at a rest area near the New Mexico line, in full daylight, after she checked the compass and told me I was heading west. A year later, we married in the courtyard of the Desert Star. Sophie made the lamps for the tables. Rachel gave Evelyn away only after Evelyn reminded her that no one was giving her anywhere. Malcolm laughed loudest. "I still repair old signs. Evelyn now designs places for people between lives, the rooms after leaving and before arriving. She says those spaces deserve windows, strong locks, and enough beauty to remind a person that survival is not the final plan." The brass compass sits on our kitchen shelf. Its glass is still cracked. Sometimes the needle shakes before it settles, and Evelyn says, "That is what courage looks like when no one edits out the trembling." I used to think the most important moment was the morning she appeared at my door after lying to her husband. It was not. The important moment came later, in a hotel lobby, when she told the truth even though the truth could cost her the house, the money, the marriage, and the version of herself she had spent years defending. A lie got her into my truck. The truth gave her a direction. And love did not begin when she chose to travel with me. It began when both of us learned that love worth keeping does not require someone to disappear, rescue someone, or become evidence in a case against another person. It asks 2 people to arrive as themselves. So let me ask you this. Have you ever called silence peace because telling the truth seemed too expensive? And if you found an old compass pointing toward a life you once wanted, would you trust the direction, even if your hands were still shaking? Tell me in the comments what you would have done at Evelyn's front door that morning. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe and come back for the next one. Some journeys begin with a plan. The important ones often begin with a joke that finally becomes a real question.